Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to go to Amir Taaki, Bitcoin legend. Amir, welcome back to the Keiser Report.
Thank you for having me back.
You know, you were one of the very first people we met in Bitcoin. That was back in 2011, and you were already a veteran in Bitcoin. You started when it was in the pennies. Just recap briefly at that period. You got involved in what year, what time, and what was happening?
That was a time when Bitcoin had just started, and we were all in this for the long game. We saw that Bitcoin had a huge potential inside of it, and we were willing to devote ourselves to that. Okay,
you say we were in it for the long game. When you say we, you're referring to a pretty small group of folks.
Yeah.
Like a handful of people, really.
Yeah, including you guys.
Including us.
You were the first to actually report on Bitcoin.
Yes. Because of thanks to guys like you, who we found to be newsworthy. And then when we talked to you, we found that there's tremendous intellectual depth to what's happening there with Bitcoin. And so one of my questions I wanted to ask you is that in the beginning, back in the 2009, 10, 11 period, it was very difficult to describe what Bitcoin is. Yeah. And here we are in 2018. And I think it's safe to say that it's still very difficult to describe what Bitcoin is. When I hear people on CNBC and other mainstream outlets talk about Bitcoin, they don't really seem to understand it any better than people were trying to understand it back in 2011. What do you think of that statement?
Yeah, Bitcoin is not some investment scheme. It's not a more convenient way to trade money online. Bitcoin, as it said on the original website, is a peer-to-peer form of money that cannot be controlled by governments and central banks. It's really important we don't lose sight of that so that what Bitcoin can truly achieve for humanity, which is liberation from this financial system of enslavement, actually becomes realized.
What do you think about this Lambo crowd? I mean, I go to North American Bitcoin Conference for a couple of years now, and it's grown to thousands of participants. You know, the early meetups were maybe 5 or 6. You ran the first Bitcoin conference ever in Prague. There were a couple, developers there, maybe 20 or 30 people, or 100 people, I guess, in total. But now you've got this idea that it's Lambos for everybody, and it seems like that's far removed from the original vision. You talked about the Satoshi white paper there. But, and you also mentioned it's a get-rich-quick scheme. Some have said it's a get-rich-quick scheme disguised, really, to get people to accept money that isn't controlled by third parties, that isn't controlled by governments. It's kind of like seduced people into accepting something that's highly subversive.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's great that we have so much capital in this community and in all of the cryptocurrency communities that people are really putting into a lot of projects to think about how can we not just construct financial systems, but new form of law, governance, economy, all of the social life. And that's fantastic because as technologists, we're putting our energies into these things for literally the last 200 years. And for the first time in that period, we have access to huge amounts of capital to realize our visions. At the same time, we have to realize that it's not just capital that will automatically create value. There actually is a core of people, and that core of people is driven for a vision, for an idea of the world. And
okay, that's an interesting idea, that capital is not necessarily going to create the value.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very interesting statement. So the value resides somewhere else. Yeah. It's in the network. It's in this rabbit hole we call Bitcoin that people can get lost in very quickly. And the value proposition is not obvious. And so then we come to the idea of why do these mainstream economists like Nouriel Roubini or Paul Krugman at the New York Times, why do they get it so wrong? What are they missing? They tend to just totally misunderstand what's happening here. What do you think?
What we're experiencing now in the West, also with the rise of the right-wing nationalist groups and religious fundamentalists, is a clash of two fundamental worldviews. There is like an older viewpoint of the world, which just sees the world in terms of like what we can see, what we can touch, was, and it is something that fundamentally see that all of the questions, all of the problems of humanity can be reduced to economic questions. But what we're experiencing in the West is something deeper, is like a loss of our humanity, is a lack of meaning and purpose. That people work their entire lives, jobs that they know is completely meaningless, that has no value whatsoever, for money which is literally printed by a central bank. And there is now a growing desire that people want to, they want to have lives and not just, they don't just want to be objects or mechanical parts in a giant apparatus that is managed by an elite that's just trying to keep the capital flowing, to keep the system stable. That people are seeing more and more that there's like a lack of aspiration or ambition, and it's deadening. And what Bitcoin represents is a way for us to break free of this system of financial or economic inscription of a vast labor force of people.
It seems that the economics has evolved over the past 100 years since, or so, since the Industrial Revolution, which brought in an era of specialization, and specialization to the degree where you have people in slave factories in China, assembling products like iPhones. And it's mind-numbingly repetitious. And so you also have the rise of technologies like search engines, which afford people the ability to completely forget what's in their heads. They don't need a brain, essentially, because it's being outsourced to a third party, this platform called a search engine. But it seems like Bitcoin is reversing that trend. It's bringing back a consciousness fusion in that all of our thoughts are being time-stamped every 10 minutes to validate this value proposition. And I wanted to ask if you think that the current technology, which is processing 40 quintillion transactions a second, that's 40,000 quadrillion transactions a second, is leading us to something that maybe we haven't even imagined yet. Some kind of consciousness fusion on the horizon. I don't mean to get too esoteric here, but we've had many conversations about this technology, and I haven't talked to you in a while. Have you had any new thoughts along these lines?
I think technology, it doesn't go in a straight line. It can go in many different directions. The danger is that the technologists now who are building these technologies, they lose sight of what is the end goal, where are we heading towards? And like so many other technology movements before them, like development of the computers, development of the internet, development of many different free technologies, that it end up just to become taken over. For example, if we don't, as technologists now, come together to organize, to formulate a sense of direction, it could very well be some big bank or big corporation adopt this blockchain technology and really make it something that's mainstream. And we lose that opportunity that we had to really put something in place that was able to change the society around us.
So you still think there's an attack vector is open from dystopian elements, big banks, et cetera?
But I don't think it's a technical problem. It's a social problem, because
certainly within the community, there's so much splintering going on with Bitcoin Cash and all these other altcoins. If all that focus was attention more just on Bitcoin and, for example, second layer development with Lightning networks, how do you think Lightning networks? How would you see that going?
Yeah, just this last week I was in a really big technology conference in Berlin, and the whole thing just felt really fake. And it was just incredible to see all these people coming and talking about blockchain and technology, and it was just like a form of mass brainwashing, really. But then I went also that same week to a Lightning event. It was a much smaller event, less than 100 people. But it was so inspiring. It was probably one of the best events I went to this year. There was a lot of energy, a lot of sense of drive to think, okay, how can we make this thing work? And that's the point I'm trying to get at, is that the technology have a potential inside of it, is there waiting for us to take it and to use it on the world to change the world in some way, but we have to be conscious of that. And it's not something that's going to happen automatically. And this is what Bitcoin is experiencing now, is this is this kind of sense of, oh, we don't need to do anything. We just need to tweak the technology. We just need to fix a few bugs here and there. And it's eventually just going to spread like wildfire. I'm saying, no, it's not going to be like that. We need to go to Africa. We need to go to Asia. We need to go to Latin America. We need to analyze different regions geopolitically. We need to build the tools. We need to organize. We need to spread these technologies. And that's going to take a huge radical transformation inside of the community. Okay, so you mentioned politics there. Your Bitcoin travels have taken you deep into politics. You went off to Syria to join, what is it? Rojava as an economic advisor, and you ended up fighting ISIS. Yeah. Now we've got about a minute and a half left. Can you kind of give us an update on how did that all happen? Yeah, there is a group of anarchist guerrillas now in the Middle East. They crossed over into Syria and started to organize the local population. And this is a force that really has the potential to transform the entire makeup of the Middle East. And it's one of the biggest opportunities the anarchists have had in the last 100 years. And now in Rojava, they've started a technology program, and they're very interested in cryptocurrencies and also the tools for digital governance and economic resource management. So that's a place with a huge amount of potential. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done to actually build the technologies to enable Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to be able to scale to a national level. Right, so here you are taking this crypto utopianism, one could call it, and introducing it in one of the most politically hot spots in the world. And how was the reaction locally? A lot of the people, in Rojava have full support of the administration. A lot of the people understand cryptocurrencies and the potential of it. It's just that Bitcoin and all these technologies we're building, they're not ready yet to serve on a national scale. A lot of the people developing these products right now are developing it for individuals. There's a huge amount of work that needs to be done in terms of telecommunications, in terms of infrastructure, different software technologies, hardware. There's a huge body of development that needs to be done now. You know, around the world, governments deal with the legacy of U.S. dollar imperialism. The U.S. empire is based on the dollar and based on debt. And one way to de-dollarize is to move out of the dollar and into Bitcoin. Yeah. But that's a message that most governments are not able to intellectually leap in that direction. Is that what you've observed as well? Well, in Rojava, they recognize that cryptocurrency is a very important tool for their economic political program, which is about decentralization of the economy. If I just quickly explain, they used to be a group that was fighting for independence, but then as Kurds, they realized they couldn't become independent because they were split over 4 different states. So instead, they changed their program to actually organizing the civil society to create their own local self-autonomous administrations as a parallel structure outside of the state. So tools like digital tools that allow them to govern, to manage their economy without needing a state on a local level in a decentralized way is something that is in line with their political program, and they recognize the potential or power of that. Perfect. It's a matter of survival as well. All right, Amir Taaki, thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report. Thank you.